Happy New Year. That was pretty good for an 8 a.m. All right, that's good. Well done, because it is Happy New Year. And we began, yesterday was the last day of the year, and we heard the daily reading from Daniel 7 and just the kingdom, the Son of Man who's coming to give dominion and have authority over all the world and have his kingdom last forever. And now today we're beginning brand new Advent. So it's the beginning of the liturgical year. January 1st is fine to celebrate. We can honor that too, but this is actually the beginning of the year because it's a new liturgical season, a new liturgical year. And so we're beginning now year one, so that's the year of the Gospel of Matthew. So we finished the Gospel of Luke last year. Now we're going to do the Gospel of Matthew. And so we're beginning, and it's great. It's nice to have you all here. And I hope you had a good Thanksgiving as well. So I remember when I was in California in graduate school, my friend Crazy Pete came and visited me for a few days. It was actually around New Year's time, because I remember we went to the Rose Parade. And he was a seminarian, so he was doing his breviary, and there was a phrase that had gotten into his mind that he would say a lot. And he would say, "Let us cast off the deeds of darkness and put on the armor of light." And it was from one of his breviary readings, from the day. And I just remember him saying that a few times. And so then that just kind of easily got into my mind, which is a good reminder that, if you just hear one verse kind of on its own, it's actually easier to remember, right? Than sometimes hearing maybe 10 verses at once. And so anyway, that one verse, so then I would say that all the time. So anytime I walk into a dark room and I was about to turn on the light, I would say, "Let us cast off the deeds of darkness and put on the armor of light." And I would turn on the light. And so that's always stayed with me. And as you heard today, the church and all of her wisdom, so the first Advent of the first 3 years in the Advent cycles, this is really the first of the first. We hear from Romans, "Cast off the deeds of darkness and put on the armor of light." And so that's what we want to do. So Advent is this beautiful season of preparing for Christmas season. If you didn't know, Christmas season begins when Christmas starts, and then it continues after Christmas. But Advent season is beforehand, and it's preparing for Advent. And the reason why it's purple is that it's actually designed to be a time of prayer and fasting to prepare for the great feast of Christmas. Now, I know in America, and especially modern America, Advent has been almost completely hijacked and turned into something called Christmas season. In fact, it's interesting. So Father Matt and I and some other friends, we were up in Estes Park for a few days over Thanksgiving week, and there were some Christmas stores up in Estes Park downtown. I thought, okay, I might need a few more decorations this year. Let's go check it out. And we went into the Christmas stores, and we walked all around it and saw all the ornaments and all the things and all the stuff, and there wasn't anything Christian. And there also wasn't anything Advent. It was just Star Wars ornaments and Doritos ornaments and Santa Claus things and, funny sayings about drinking wine or whatever. An entire store, more than one, having nothing to do with Jesus and not even acknowledging that Advent exists. So I'm just saying, so we get the opportunity to really celebrate and be countercultural, and celebrate Advent. So Advent is this great season. Now, I'm not saying you can't go to Advent parties. I'm not saying you can't listen to, eat some Advent cookies and stuff. But the question is, how are you going to increase your prayer and fasting in some ways as you're preparing to receive Jesus? So you're preparing to have a greater Christmas experience by preparing well. So what I highly recommend for most of you, at least certainly the younger people, is limit your screen time in some way, right? Somehow just say, I'm going to have less screen and I'm going to have more time for family or friends in face-to-face, or hopefully even more time for prayer, right? So if you just need an easy one, there you go. And maybe you're just limiting your screen on 1 or 2 days. Or maybe you're just limiting your screen on certain times of the day. Maybe you're going to, put the phone away an hour or two earlier than normal. Or maybe you're going to say, hey, on Wednesdays and Fridays, I'm not going to, look at unnecessary media or whatever it may be. Now, you could do something else. Maybe you're saying, hey, I just want to create some space to pray more. And maybe that's what you're going to do. But again, it doesn't have to be maybe as intense as Lent, although if you want a really great Christmas, the more intense your Advent is, the greater the joy of Christmas. But just make sure you're doing something. Now, maybe even, I felt like the Holy Spirit was reminding me this past week that if you didn't know, Fridays, every single Friday is a day that you're supposed to give up meat. You may not know that. Every single Friday, all year long, you're supposed to give up meat. However, it says that during the non-Lenten season, you can substitute giving up meat for some other type of fasting. So if you're not doing that, at least start doing that. At least start doing something on Fridays, because that's the day that Jesus suffered and died, so that's the day we always fast during the week. And then Sunday is the day that Jesus rose from the dead, so make sure that you're feasting and rejoicing on Sundays, right, with Mass being the pinnacle of that, but hopefully you're resting and rejoicing all day long. So at the very least, make sure every Friday that you're doing something. Now again, if you don't give up meat, that's fine, but figure out what are you doing? Are you giving up sugar? Are you giving up unnecessary media? It's something that you're doing throughout the whole day. So just to make sure we're framing that. Now, why is this so important? You would think that, okay, it's Advent, and we're just going to talk about Christmas the whole time during Advent. Well, the church, the last readings of the last part of the year, so yesterday's daily Mass readings, it's all about the end of the world when we're all going to be either going to heaven or hell, the end. And the very first day, what are the first readings about? The end of the world when we're all either going to heaven or hell. And what are the emphasis here of getting there is holiness. Holiness. Our relationship with the Lord and His power transforming us so that we're more and more like Him. Because it says those of us who are saved by Christ and we get all the way to heaven, it says we will be like Him. And if we're going to be like Him, one of us is going to change, right? Right? Are you perfectly like Jesus right now? Well, then there's some changing to be done, right? So this is that chance for Advent, and it's just a little window, right? Just a little 4 weeks, maybe only 3.5 weeks, to just say, okay, how am I going to grow closer to Jesus? And that's fine. You can do some shopping, and you can get presents, and you can celebrate in whatever your degree of decorations. I'm not going to be the legislator on that or whatever, but make sure that in the midst of all that, and you can have all that joy, you can have what they call Christmas joy, that's fine, just make that Advent joy. That's no problem, that's great. And but to make sure that you're also saying, how am I growing closer to the Lord? And if you don't know how to do that, then just at least start focusing on the Holy Spirit. The Holy Spirit is the person of God who is with you all the time, who is trying to draw you closer to the Lord, who is filling you with His power, His love, the gifts of the Holy Spirit, the power of the Holy Spirit. Holy Spirit is the Spirit of love, Spirit of holiness, right? All these things. Just start talking to the Holy Spirit as much as you possibly can. Wherever He is honored, He dwells more and more. Wherever He is acknowledged and invited, He dwells more and more. So just begin, if you don't know what else to do, to start growing closer to God or to start transforming from the inside. Just start asking for more and more and more of the Holy Spirit. When I was in Poland in 2007, I actually just found some old photos when I was home, and I found the date, 2007, my first time to Poland. We got to go to Wawel Cathedral, which is the kind of castle/cathedral of Krakow, where John Paul II was ordained secretly under the Nazi regime, and then also later became the Bishop of Krakow. And when we were there, Cardinal Dziwisz was the Cardinal of Krakow. Now, Cardinal Dziwisz was Pope John Paul II's priest secretary his entire pontificate. So this is someone who was with John Paul II, for decades and decades and decades. When John Paul II was shot and he fell back into a priest's arms and he started going to confession, that's Cardinal Dziwisz, okay? So we had a private audience with him, and he told us, he said, John Paul II, every morning, not only did he spend a lot of time in prayer in the morning, but every morning he asked for more of the Holy Spirit. More and more of the Holy Spirit. More and more of the gifts of the Holy Spirit. And many gifts were given, right? And much holiness was given. So just be encouraged that if you're, this is a whole new year. Let this be a year of the Holy Spirit for you. Let this be a year where you just, everything's just improving in your spiritual life. And even if you're in some desolation, that you're also, at least that you can see the virtues increasing in your life. So very good. All right. Okay, well, I was going to try and talk about all the readings, but we'll just leave it there. One small thing, I'm not sure I don't think we have our OCIA today because of the holiday weekend. So we don't have that dismissal. But anyway, just for your own edification too, the gospel that we hear today about, there's two people and one of them's taken, and then there's another two people, one of them is taken. Some, not all, but some of our Protestant brothers and sisters, especially 20 years ago and 30 years ago, were kind of, they invented this thing called the rapture, where some people are going to be taken, and then there's going to be another 1,000 years of history and all this stuff. And so I'm just kind of reminding you that that's not true, and that's not Catholic theology. That's something that some people came up with in the late 1800s, but that verse is referring to the end of time, to the very end, not some kind of medium space rapture thing. So anyway, so just if you want to find out more about that, look into Catholic Answers or find out some more. But I just don't want you being deceived because they, made some movies and a bunch of books and it sounds kind of convincing, but and it's a nice storyline, but it's not true. So I just wanted to remind you of that. So when the end comes, and that's that. All right. So going back to this again, Romans starting pretty strong here, right? Let us cast off the deeds of darkness. Let us put on the armor of light. Let us conduct ourselves properly as in the day. And then he goes through a whole bunch of stuff that you probably shouldn't even stay in church. And that's how we start Advent. That's how we start the new year. Because it's like, hey, most of us are still pretty tempted to do a bunch of rotten stuff. So it's like, the Lord is here. He loves you. He's got saving power. He's giving you so much. This is a chance to grow closer to him, to put off the deeds of darkness, put on the armor of light. And we do that by growing closer, first knowing how loved we are, and then getting the power of the Holy Spirit within us. The power of the Holy Spirit within us. So it's going to be a great Advent. It's going to be a great year. And it's a great time to begin rejoicing. But we don't rejoice so much as the world does, but we rejoice as believers, right? Those filled with love, those with great hope, and those with great faith. So let us cast off the deeds of darkness and put on the armor of light.